Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Win a Pageant Jumpstart. Today is a very special day because we've got another Win a Pageant coach joining us today here in the Jumpstart with an awesome training that I promise you're going to love, all about branding and specifically how to design a standout brand. And this is with our coach, Nicole Coker, has been working with Win a Pageant. We've been together for maybe over a year. She'll be able to clarify that specifically. This girl is an action taker. Like, her middle name should be action. It should be like Nicole Action Coker, because this girl takes action. She's like, just tell me what to do. And then boom, 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 it's done. In between all of our coaching sessions, she was completing like massive. So you will see how in just a little over a year, I believe it's been, she has when she came to me, she had already published a book. Okay. She'd been a published author when we met. Okay. I've got to show you her book because it's cute. So A to Z, the coloring book of courageous characters. And, courageous is the word that she owns. And she's going to talk a little bit about your brand and how you can own your word too. And in her book, this thing is so adorable. I can't wait for Adelina to be able to start coloring. And I'm already like, maybe I should start coloring. They do say it's good for adults to, stress relief and stuff. So she came to me with this book. And through this, we got ideas for all these other new things that she's created. She now has a podcast that last I knew was in over 15 countries. That's international. Talk about incredible reach. And she was able to land brand partnerships with pageant brands to become their host on social media. The girl gets hers. If you don't follow her already on Instagram, go follow her right now, okay? Go follow her right now. I believe that it is Nicole. She's going to tell us. I don't want to get it wrong. She's going to tell us when we bring her on here, okay? So enough of me talking about Nicole. Let's go ahead and bring her on. If you haven't already, give her a shout out in the comments. Welcome, Nicole. I'm happy to have you here. Oh,
how are you?
So good. I'm happy that you're here. I'm so glad that you get to share your heart and love for all things branding. You have done an exceptional job of creating a standout pageant brand. And really, it stems from your personal brand. And we're going to get into all those goodies and all the ways of how we can teach others to do that. Before we do that, first thing I want you to do is, could you give us your Instagram handle? I'm going to put it in the comments because I want people to go and check you out immediately so that they can get excited about what they are about to learn, because they're going to learn some good stuff from you. So tell me again your Instagram handle.
Yes. So it's Nicole.Coker_.
Nicole.Coker_. Got it. Okay. I just put it in the comments right here. And so people can just click that link and head over to follow you immediately so they can see this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about designing a beautiful standout pageant brand. Okay, so follow Nicole. She's got the scoop on how we're going to do this. All right, so Nicole, take me back to before we worked together, okay? I know you already had the coloring book, so this was already some legacy project that you had already sort of developed, but it was before you had deep insights about the legacy project. So take me back to that. Tell us a little bit about where you were in that phase of your life and how you stumbled into Win a Pageant.
Yes, this is my favorite story by far, because I never would have believed I would be sitting here right now talking on the Pageant Jumpstart with Alycia. Like, it is just insane to even think about. It's so amazing. And I'm so excited to share it with you guys. So I actually started pageantry really late in life. I started when I was 17. I had no idea what I was doing. I started with National American Miss. I competed there when I was 17 years old, and I didn't make the cut. So I didn't make top 15. I didn't make top 5. I had no clue what I was doing, but I was super competitive, and I was like, oh, I can do better. I can come back and do better. So the following year, I was 18 at the time. I came back and ended up placing first runner up. And I was like, wow, how did I go from not placing at all to first runner up all of a sudden? Like, it was insane. I was so excited. But with National American Miss, for anyone back then, the Miss division was all online. So I was like, well, I need to find a new place to go, because I wasn't able to afford to go all the way to California and pay for all the fees by myself. So I was trying to find that next pageant journey. And I knew that I wanted to be a state title holder. I wanted to see that crown and sash, on my head and across my body. So I was like, where do I go next? So I ended up finding USA National Miss, and I won my first ever title as a Miss Contestant in 2017. And I was over the moon. I had finally met my goal of being a pageant title holder. I went to nationals. It was my first ever national pageant. I didn't place, and which was totally expected. I'm the type of person that when I start something, I'm just going to get my feet wet and see how it kind of goes. And then once I'm there and I see how everything works out, then I'm like, okay, I got it. Now I know what to do. So the following year in 2019 at the time, I went back to nationals. I took an appointed title with USA National Miss, went to nationals, felt 100%. I was killing it on stage. I had a great time. I ended up placing top 15 that year. And I was so excited. Like as soon as I made top 15, I was like, okay, I'm good. As long as I make top 15, I feel great. And top 15 is where I landed. So then I was like, all right, now it's time to take it home. So I came back the third year in a row. So this is the third year with USA National Miss. And this is another appointed title that I took, went straight to nationals. And this year I was like, okay, this is my year. So I went through the entire process, the same thing. I knew what to expect. I knew what all the parties was. I knew all of the different competitions that I was going to be competing in. And I was like, okay, this is my time. Got to the moment whenever they're calling top 15 and my name wasn't called. So I was like, wow, how did I go from not placing, going to top 15, and now I'm not placing again? It just made no sense to me. And I was really devastated. I was like, wow, how did I do all these different things and not progress at all? And I was like, okay, well, I need to figure out what's going on. So I was doing, your regular Google searches. It's like, okay, what can I find on YouTube? What can I find somewhere to like help me out? And I didn't have a coach up until that point. And then I got a coach for that third year, but still didn't place. So I was like, just looking for other opportunities, other resources, and somehow stumbled across Alicia's podcast and YouTube channel. And I was watching all the videos on there, and y'all, Alycia, she covers everything from the very top to the bottom. She does not miss a beat. She does not miss a step. And I personally am a step-by-step type of person. I like going from the beginning to the end and being able to hit all of those points in between, because I truly believe keeping that organization is how you get things done quickly and efficiently. So I was looking at her podcast, looking at her YouTube channel, and I didn't see, because the podcast, I can't remember exactly when she stopped it, but at that point she had not been making new podcasts. So I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to work with her. She's not doing coaching anymore. And I actually remember emailing you, Alycia, and I was like, hey, like, I've been listening to your podcast and I knew you do coaching. So I was like asking you questions. I can't really remember what exactly I asked, but you kind of helped me to where I needed to be. And then I was just like, okay, great. So you just like gave me a little pointer, but I never actually set up coaching with you. And at that time, I decided that I was going to compete for USA National Miss for the fourth year in a row. I'm very, very dedicated. And once I put my mind to something, I really want to be able to achieve it. So I was like, all right, fourth year in a row, let's do this thing. And this is kind of when COVID hit. I ended up winning the Miss South Carolina title again with USA National Miss that October. And then in the January of 2020, I believe, is when Alycia came back to life. She was just established in the world of pageantry. She's like, hey, I'm back for the Pageant Jumpstart. We're starting this whole new program. And I watched every single video of that Jumpstart. I was like, wow, this is amazing. All these different things that she's been able to give to me just in this week without even personally working with her has just been incredible. And if you know Alycia, you get more than you bargain for. So it was absolutely incredible. And then towards the end of the week, that's when she announced the first ever Inner Circle program. And when she was announcing this program, she was talking about, this is your time. Like, if you are here, God has put you here for a reason. He is crafting this story for you. And the reason you're here is for something specific. And I think it's this program for you. So she was really speaking to me when she was throwing this pitch for this new program that she had created. It was the perfect timing with COVID and being able to do online stuff while I was online finishing my bachelor's degree. And I went all in. I joined the first ever Inner Circle, and the rest is history.
Oh my gosh, you're taking me back. That's so sweet.
Yes.
I love this. I love hearing the story because one of the things I pulled from what you just said for those that are taking notes that I think is a example of success is that you knew that there was something you could learn. And so you done it on your own several times, but you were like, I need a coach. And then you got a coach, but then that wasn't the thing. It wasn't the thing that helped you break through. And so you're like, I need to find other options. And so you kept searching. And I think so often in our lives, we have a big goal and we get to a place where it gets hard and we're just like, oh, well, never mind. I guess that's not going to work after all, and so we stop our search. And what you did was you're like, I'm going to keep searching. And then it looks like Alycia's not active. Little did you know, I'm behind the scenes creating all this other stuff, right? And I'm just like not on YouTube. And so, but you were like, let me just reach out anyway and see, And so then I can give you some pointers and point you down there. And then when the time was right, you took immediate action. And something else that you said that I really love, and I feel like this is your secret sauce into getting things done, is you said, and I wrote it down because I think this is brilliant. You said, excellent organization is how you get things done quickly and efficiently. And I think that is so true because I know, and you've experienced this too, that opportunities pass so fast that life goes by quickly. And we have to take action fast and we have to be organized. We have to go through a system in a way that we can actually do the thing fast, because otherwise and it has to be efficient. It can't be that we're wasting time, because we can run down the wrong path really fast and it might be quick, but it's not efficient. And so what you've done very well is you've allowed yourself to stay organized. And I think that's the key to your success, is that you get organized really fast and then you put things into motion. And so it's quick and it's efficient. And that's how I believe you've had such incredible success. So it's so cool. And it's incredible. You were a part of the very first Inner Circle program, which now has morphed into something even bigger and better, the Academy, the Win a Pageant Academy. And now you are able to join us in the Academy as a coach, which is awesome. I love, love, love that. Yeah. So share a little bit about what you did because you were in the Inner Circle. You actually joined the Inner Circle a few times. And then we also did some one-on-one coaching outside of that. And in fact, Nicole, you were one of the examples of the reason that the Inner Circle, which was at that time a 1-month program, has now morphed into the Academy, which is now a 6-month program, is because of people like you who kept coming back and were like, look, I need more direction. These steps are working, but the short time frame, like if I want to keep growing, I need to have more access. And so you and I worked together for really over a year. It's been over a year now. It was March 2020. So it's been now over a year. Talk a little bit about, first of all, I'm curious if you had any hesitations to join the Inner Circle, because, you hadn't really known me. We'd never worked together before. What were your hesitations before you joined? Or were there any, or did you just jump right in?
Yeah, so I obviously was super excited the entire time the Pageant Jumpstart was going on. I think it may have been called something different because I think you changed the naming of it. Something along those lines, but the same thing that you guys have been going through all week long, I was going through the very first time that she launched it. And I don't know about you, but every time Alycia came on camera, she was always talking about how she has our best interests in mind, and she's always trying to work hard to make sure she's bringing you guys the best content and the best version of herself. And I just really bought into that because she also was a believer of God and really brought that into all of her pageant coaching. And that was so critical for me too, because she gets it. So really the only hesitation, and this isn't even a hesitation because of you or anything that you did, Alycia, but it was just like a financial hesitation for me. But at the same time, because I was about to graduate with my bachelor's degree in architecture, and obviously that comes with all of its expenses. But I was like, you know what? I need to invest in me. And if I want to win my next pageant, or if I want to create something that's bigger and better than me, I'm going to need to invest in myself no matter what that means. So I made it work. It may not have been, the best, way of going about it in terms of financially, but I won't get into all the details of that, but I figured out how I was going to do it and I made it work. And I think that's something that you guys should be thinking about, because the Win a Pageant Academy is what I went through plus 10,000. I don't even know how to describe how much better it is. I know all the details now, so I'm very excited about that. And I just know that it's going to be an incredible opportunity for any pageant woman to get into. You're going to be able to create amazing things through it. And we have so many amazing coaches now to be able to help Alycia out, so it's going to be even better.
It's so true. Yes. And what you're describing, I think, is a normal thing for everybody when you're making an investment, a financial investment. It's different than a time investment because we don't track time in the same way. Like we don't look at a bank account of time. We don't look at a bank account of energy. We don't look at a bank account of, effort, but we do look at a bank account of finances. And so even though all of those things are things that everybody will contribute if they're going to actually win, every winner contributes from each of those accounts, if you will. But the financial one is the one that we see. And so it's so
Mhm.
evident. And so I think that's why that tends to be a hesitation for a lot of people, because you're wondering, like, if I do figure this out, am I going to be able to get back what I put in? Like, what's
Yeah.
going to be the return on my investment? What was it that for you? Like, did you feel like, you mentioned like this was a stretch for you? Like, this isn't something that wasn't
Yes.
just like, you're like, oh, yes, I've got money, like growing on trees in my backyard. Like, you actually had to be like, I got to figure out how am I going to make this thing work, get creative, and then make the investment. Are you glad that you did at that time? Was that the best thing to do? Was there, like, what was that experience like then on the other side, getting into the program and going through it? How did you then feel about that financial stretch?
Yeah, even if I could go back right now, I would do the same thing again because the little coloring book that Alycia showed you guys in the beginning, that's not what that coloring book looked like before I met Alycia. I actually was in my dorm room back in my last semester of college, right before everything hit with COVID. I had drawn all the illustrations in there, and then I created the cover of that, and I printed those out. So I printed those little my covers. There were 4x6 cards out of like photo paper. So I like got a deal at CVS, and I got like 150 of them for like $5 or something like that. And I had all these covers of them. And then I went through and I printed out all of the coloring pages, and I was cutting them by hand and putting them together with staples. Like, I was literally like, that was my process. That's what I was doing. Of course, like, putting all that time and effort meant a lot to me, and I'm sure it meant a lot to people that I ended up giving them to, but it wasn't like official like it is now. And the only way I was able to really know how to do that was through the Win a Pageant system, because Alycia has this write your book and publish your book in the Win a Pageant Academy. And I was able to use that to see how to put it on Amazon. I didn't even know that for free you can go onto Amazon and self-publish your book. I had no idea until I got into the Inner Circle, which is now the Win a Pageant, Win a Pageant Academy. And that right there was one of the products that I got out of the Inner Circle back then. And then not only that, I finally was able to articulate what my story was and what I should be giving to the pageant community when I'm in my interview or whenever I'm doing appearances. What is my heart story that I'm going to be telling people, and what can I create to be able to tell that story? And that's kind of how my podcast was born, and how what I had to go through to get to that point, and how the Live Courageously brand really started. So there was two big things that I got out of just those inner circles right there.
Yeah, that's so cool to think that those, and it's, I love that you tell that story about like printing the things, cutting them up, like, because when you don't know what you don't know what to look for. You don't know what to ask about. You don't know what to seek out, and I believe you're fully
Exactly.
capable that had you researched that, you're good with tech, you're young, like you probably could have figured it out on your own.
Yeah.
But if you want things to be done quick and efficiently, you follow the steps, and you are brilliant
Yes.
about doing that. I think that probably having access to those things for you at that time where you were like ready for it, you're like, all right, bring it on. Like, I'm ready to learn, and I'm ready to implement, and I'm ready to do this stuff. The growth that you have then seen because of just taking action after action after action, and being in a community of people who continue to like push you, and who are continually like, okay,
Yes.
what's next? What's next? What's next? And then you're like, oh, I need a book. I need a podcast. I might as well do this. I might as well do that. And it makes it really easy when we've got that step-by-step system. So that's awesome that you were able to take advantage of it too, and that you really leaned into those courses that you got access to, which is huge. So that's awesome to hear that it for sure paid off times way more than you ever even expected. So that's so cool to hear. So can you talk a bit about your brand? Because one of the things that and I teach in the Win a Pageant Academy, and I taught you, there are certain ways that you can do things to first understand what is my brand, develop what you were describing, your story. We call it your heart story. So developing your heart story in a way that you can now communicate it to others, and then building out a project as you did with your podcast into, okay, how am I going to get this message out to more people than just my local community or the people I bump into, right? And you've done that to now 15 countries worldwide. Your message of building that courageous life, living a courageous life is getting out there. Can you talk about the not necessarily yet, I want to get to like the way that the brand looks now, but can you talk a little bit about the journey that you went on to discover what that brand was, that living a courageous life, how we developed that for you?
Yes. So originally, what I was doing prior to meeting you, Alycia, was I had sort of a heart story back then, and like I tried to sell it to people and make it seem like this was who I was and things like that, but it wasn't quite there yet. So for anyone who doesn't know, my heart story is actually I was in a toxic relationship for 6 years of my life. That relationship started when I was just 14 years old. I was just getting out of 8th grade, going into high school, and it lasted all the way until I was a sophomore in college. And that experience alone really took a lot from me, and I wasn't able to really be who I wanted to be and do the things that I wanted to do because I always had someone there telling me that I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't allowed to do certain things. So this was a relationship where I was controlled in a lot of different ways, and I wasn't able to truly be who I wanted to be. So the heart story then was I wasn't fully ready to really communicate it the way that it should have been communicated, because I was always like, well, I was kind of in a toxic relationship, or I was kind of, controlled. But really at the end, I had to come to terms that, yes, I wasn't one. I was a victim of relationship abuse. I was a survivor of relationship abuse. And I had to own that story and know that I can communicate that to people because that is who I am. And that is what brought me to where I am now, because it took a lot of courage to get out of that situation. And that's kind of where it kind of started to stem from, because it takes a lot of courage to get out of situations like that. And it takes even more courage to start a life beyond it. I had no idea how to even just be myself throughout all of the process afterwards, because I wasn't allowed to post certain things on social media. I mean, controlled in all certain sorts of ways. So being out of that relationship, I was like, well, I now can post things on social media. So what do I post and what do I say? It was just kind of like this relearning to be my own human again, you know what I mean? And it takes a lot of courage to start putting yourself back out there, courage to try the new things that you want to try. And that was all during the time when I just started pageantry too. So being with all of my pageant sisters and seeing all their incredible accomplishments really helped me kind of start thinking about the things that I really wanted to do. Because I always had these big dreams. I was like, oh, I want to write a book someday, and I want to, do these different things, but I never felt that I was capable enough to do them. So when I got into the inner circle at the time, I was really just crafting that heart story and being confident, knowing that what I was saying is what I went through and how I overcame it. So that whole Live Courageously message was brought out through the inner circle, and the whole underlying theme was courage. And Alycia helped me pull that out. I still remember the call when we were talking about the podcast, because I wanted a way to tell my story, because I think there's so many people in this world right now who are in a relationship that's toxic and don't even realize it. I didn't realize it for about 5 out of the 6 years that I was with this person. And it takes so much to understand that, and many people do not know it, and many people don't know it now. I think it's 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and then 1 in 2 non-binary or trans people are in a toxic relationship right now and have no idea. So I knew I needed to get this story out, and I knew I needed to reach many, many, many people all across the world with this story, because there's so many people who need to hear it. And that's kind of how the idea of the podcast happened. And one of the things about a legacy project is it's something that can live beyond you. So I created the podcast. It takes me to actually create it. It takes me to actually tell that story, and it takes me to talk about how we can move past it. But once I'm gone, once I'm like, all right, I'm done with the podcast will always be there, and there will always be all these messages and these different things that people can learn from that. And I think that's one of the biggest things about a legacy project. Some people, like, I didn't understand what a legacy project was until I got into the inner circle and was truly going through that process and understanding what it was. And I think so many of you probably still are like, well, what the heck is a what legacy project? Like, I have a platform, but platform and legacy project are two different things. So just going through the entire inner circle process and having Alycia by my side through that call, we were able to pull out this underlying theme of courage, and just truly living your courageous life is what we all need to do each and every day. It doesn't even have to be about relationships. It doesn't have to be about some of the things that you went through. It could be just having the courage to try something new. I actually, this past year, like I said earlier, I was with USA Nationalists for 4 years in a row. And I was really, really dedicated. And I think a lot of people knew that. But at the same time, I needed to have the courage to try a new pageant system. And that's something that I wasn't willing to do back then. But now that I have this live courageously message, I need to live it. And I think that's so important for you as you're starting to think about what your brand could be. Not only do you create the brand, but you also have to live the brand. And once I was actually truly living that brand, just going to a new system, I ended up placing second runner-up in the world because it was an international pageant. And just being able to have that courage to try something new and seeing all the amazing things that you can do through it is truly what this program is about. And you can get all these same things through the Win a Pageant Academy alongside all these amazing coaches. And I just truly believe this is how I was able to just truly flourish in my life because of this program.
That's so cool to hear. And thanks for walking through each of those steps, because it's so true that, we all start with something, and we all have it already. Every individual has that brand inside of them, but it really takes that. Let's draw it out. Let's focus on the positivity. And what's so epic about your brand, like we do with all legacy projects, is we want to focus on the light. We want to focus on what's positive, and then we want to make it available to a broader audience so that it doesn't limit your appearances to only working with children, or limit your appearance to only working with people who've been in a relationship trauma in your case. But let's work with all people and invite everybody to step into a more courageous life. And that's what you do so beautifully. That's what your podcast is all about. That's what even this book does for children, and all the things that you have developed around that word courage, and like just owning that word fully as a part of what you bring. And I think I want to just point out to those that are listening that listen to how well Nicole knows her heart story, like how easy it is for her to share where this came from with vision of where it's going, the stat that you pulled, which is a key stat, which is something that we teach inside of the academy as well. Like all of these are aspects of the legacy project, of your brand, of how you communicate your brand to others. And it's so, now Nicole's like, oh yeah, like, so I had this story before, but now I own my story. Now I've got it down. Now I can speak it to other people, and it can be from a positive perspective. It can be not in a heavy way, but it can be the hope, and kind of sharing that light with other people. And so you just demonstrated that really, really beautifully, Nicole. So I love it.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So you created this podcast, you created this, we create something first in our minds. We create the vision first in our minds, and then we take action on it. And you've done that so beautifully. Can you share a bit about, now I'm kind of getting into the technical stuff, about how because I teach a little bit of this, but you've taken it to the next level. Like I teach like, oh, here's like an easy way to create this and that. But you are like, and what about this and this and this and this and this? And you built this beautiful brand, this incredibly beautiful online presence. For those of you that are watching from your computer, go open a second tab and pull up that Instagram link that I put in there so that you can see what I'm talking about in the way that Nicole is showcasing now the brand that has been developed. Because remember, we talked about earlier in the week, for those of you who have already seen that video in the 5 steps, the brand is kind of the thing that's in the ground. We don't really see it, but it comes out in the legacy project. So now Nicole's done such a beautiful job of showing this brand to others now, visually speaking. So can you share a little bit about, just give us your first tip on what do we need to be thinking of when we're showcasing our brand to others? It's kind of
Yes. So the
broad.
first thing that
So
you want
take
to
it
think
however you
about.
can.
Okay, yeah. It's very broad. I was like, well, there's a billion different ways we could go with this. But the very first thing, obviously, is knowing what that brand is. So Live Courageously was mine. So one of the things you have to think about whenever you're showcasing this brand to people outside of your brain, because you know it well, but people don't know it well, is how do I show courage through my social media and platforms all across the board to a bunch of different people. And that really stems from posting things that are courageous, talking about how you've been courageous in your life. I'm just going to use mine for example to help you guys kind of see the thought processes and the things that I've been thinking about in order to really showcase this brand. The second thing is being very specific about what that is. So if you are looking at my Instagram by chance, my bio, which Alycia helped me kind of craft, is something that you'll also get in the Win a Pageant Academy if you are looking to rebrand your social media. We have all that for you. Is your bio straight up saying, okay, this is what I'm here for. So I believe mine, I don't know the exact words off the top of my head, is to I help women live their courageous life. That's the first thing that you see on my Instagram, letting people know immediately that's what it is. And then if you have my Facebook account open, the background image for, because there's my little image of me, like my headshot, but then in the background, when you on my page, you'll see that I have my Live Courageously little branding message right behind it. So as soon as you go to my profile on Facebook, you can see that it's evident, it's there. And then just really talking about your legacy project through specific ways. So if you go through my Instagram, you can kind of see where I've posted videos and I'm like, hey guys, like, welcome back to another week of the Live Courageously podcast. I have these awesome things to share with you. So I'm like communicating not only in images, but videos as well. So then you can kind of swipe through and you'll see like the branding image that I have for my specific episode for that week. And it's just really trying to communicate with people in all different ways that I'm here to help them. Here to help them live their courageous life in any way that I can. And just truly just live that message through my social media. And I've been able to create a lot of my graphics for almost anything that I post that's not just an image of me through Canva. And Canva is a great tool. Not only can you save your branding colors, because branding, when people think about branding, the first thing they think about usually is like color palettes, which is a part of it. But first you have to have what that brand is, which is the Live Courageously brand. And then what you do is you have your color palettes that you can work with. And that's what keeps everything really consistent and pretty. As you can tell, well, yeah, okay. So like my color brand, even if you see it on Instagram, is like this pink, light colors and things like that. So I like have that across the board. So I even in my little background here love the light colors, the pinks and things like that. So I kind of bring that out in a lot of all of my social media images and things like that. And if you're on Instagram, if you scroll down a little bit, you see where I was kind of not so sure what my scheme was going to be and how I was going to be able to communicate that. Just the visual part, you can tell like there was a moment whenever I like had the shift of what that was going to be, because the rest of it is a complete mess, but it's a part of it. It's part of the process. You want to be able to see that growth and that change. So there's a ton of programs that I use out there for that specifically.
It's this. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm posting the link in the comments so that people can see what you're really talking about here, because I think, and
Yeah.
it's fun to scroll back. Once someone's figured it out, it's fun to go back in their profile and be like, was there ever a time she didn't have this figured out? And be like, oh, yep, right there. Like I have that too on my
Mhm.
Instagram as well. Where it's like,
Yes.
oh yeah, that's before I actually learned what I was doing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now it's starting to look gorgeous. Just as
Yes.
yours is too. It's like it's beautiful, it's brilliant, and I love what you've done, what you've created in order to set yourself apart and set yourself up for how you want people to see and remember you. And you're doing that beautifully. Like you said, even behind you, that image fits your brand. It's on brand, as we say. Like it's like, yep, that's what we would expect from Nicole is this look and feel. Like, and so it's awesome what you've been able to do to kind of tie all those things together. You mentioned Canva. So for those listening that are like, oh, I've never heard of this tool before, canva.com. Canva.com, I do have some trainings that I've created inside of the academy, But Nicole, I would love for you in one of the skill building sessions to do a deep dive in how to actually optimize Canva, like the brand colors that you mentioned. I know you can set up fonts to determine which fonts
Mhm.
you use and templates in there so that you're not recreating the wheel every single time. Like it'd be awesome for you to actually like do a tutorial. We don't have time for that today, obviously, but in the skill building sessions, I think that would be brilliant for you to be able to bring and teach. And then we'll just leave that in there for as people join the academy. I think that would be great because you've just done such a beautiful job. And it's free. Canva is a free tool, which is awesome. And even the pro tool that I think, Nicole, you've got pro. I use the pro version
Mhm.
too. And it's inexpensive. It's maybe $12 a month or something like that. So for those of
Yes.
you who end up operating at a high level, you start a podcast and you've got, a lot of things that are now cranking, you might want to have the pro version because again, when you invest in something that's worthwhile, it's going to make it's organization and it's going to make things happen a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently. And the same is true of Canva Pro. So, all those tools work. Yeah. What was this like when you first, because I think a lot of people, when they're working through, like what is my brand and is it really for sure and stuff, there's this desire to want to leap ahead of all of the action steps into clarity. And as you know, because you've done it millions of times in your life, you got to start with the action, take the action, and then eventually it leads to the clarity. Do you remember what it was like for you in those moments of lacking clarity where it was like, okay, so I'm going with courageous thing. I'm like posting these things on social. Maybe your feed wasn't quite where you wanted it, but you're like, I'm still working through. What did that feel like? And what did you do in terms of mindset to overcome that lack of certainty? Or was there anything that helped you to overcome that?
Yeah, so I actually want to talk about the process of even starting the podcast in general because I was in the inner circle and I was working through it and I was going through and I was taking all the steps and I got to the point where I like had a couple episodes that I wanted to do and it was time to actually record. And I kind of procrastinated a little bit on this. I was like, this is a big deal. Like, this is the first recording of this. And I wanted to make sure it was perfect. I felt I'm a perfectionist and it's kind of one of those things like even now I'm in my master's of architecture and we're doing all these different projects right now and I'm like working to the bitter end, making sure everything is perfect. But when it comes to your brand, you just have to know that you just have to do it. You can't sit back and it's like, well, it has to be perfect before I get it out there. It has to be exactly the way I need it to be before I even can give it out to the world. But that is not the answer in this case. In this case, you just have to do it. And once you do it, you'll start understanding where you need to maybe change something here or try something different here. So once I started recording, I kind of got in the flow of things and it took some time to learn a little bit about the programs of how I edited and some quick Google searches on how I was able to work through Audacity, which is or I think it's called Audacity or something along that lines. We can talk about it later. But just learning those processes and just having the courage to just put it out there. And it takes a lot of courage to do that because I thought maybe people would not like it so much, or it was my first episode or the second episode is like telling my story in depth, like all the things that I talked about today, I go into much more deeper detail. So if you guys are interested, you can go listen there. There's tons of things that happened. And I always tell people you just grab some popcorn because it's going to be a wild ride when you're listening to that episode. But just knowing that people need to hear your story, no matter if you think that it's not good enough or you think that people might make fun of you or they might, not like what you have to say. There's somebody in this world who needs your story and you just have to just put it out there. You just got to go for it. And I think that's one of the things that I had to do in those moments, even with branding, like doing the social media branding. I would try one thing and it's like, okay, I think this is right. I think this is what I like. And then turns out, I did a couple of them and no, this is not really what I like. So there are several iterations of what my entire brand even looked like in the beginning because I had a template and I was like, okay, here it is. Here's all my fonts and here's my colors. But that even evolved and changed. Just knowing that you can't be stuck on one thing and you can't make that one thing perfect. You just have to keep going and keep pushing and things will slowly start to fall into place. That way, once it's all said and done, you're going to have something that's absolutely stunning, that really moves people, and that's the way to go.
Yeah, that's so true. Yes, I love it. And Audacity, yes, that's the one that I recommend. I put that in the comments
Yes.
as well, so people could use that. I used Audacity when I first started. That was my editing software. I mean, there's tons of other editing softwares, GarageBand and things like that, but Audacity is just so easy to use. And like you said, I appreciate what you said about a learning curve. Like there is a learning curve. Anytime you're trying to do something brand new, you got to learn how to do it first. And so there is that bit of okay, let me figure this thing out. Let me get through it. And you mentioned some Google searches. I'm hoping that you will be able, now that you've done all that stuff in your training inside the academy, you'll save the rest of us from millions of
Yes.
Googles because you can get lost there. It's like, or people follow different systems. And so then you're trying to pull this system together with this system. They just don't go together. And so it's like that, all of that work that you've had to put in, and now to be able to bring that to the academy so others can just be like, boom, push play and rock with it. Yeah, it makes it, you're going to make it so much easier on everyone else. So that's good. Amanda is saying here, this is so true, that imperfect published work is better than never publishing something because you're looking for perfection. A lot of people say done is better than perfect, and this came to me from a mentor when I remember when I was wanting to publish my very first book, which was not the book that I now have. It was like this other crazy book, but it was done is better than perfect. But I was wanting to publish this book, and I wanted to publish this book, and a mentor of mine said that someone told him, my ugly book that's published is better than the one you haven't published yet, no matter how good yours looks. And it's so true that,
Exactly.
like, someone's book is out there, like your coloring book, even at the very beginning, it was maybe ugly, but it was better than the one that someone thought of and never wrote. And now you've got this beautiful like second version, so you're in version 2 now of the coloring book. I imagine that next time you have a big idea, you're going to have a version 3 of the coloring book, and it's like as we grow as people, as we grow as contestants, as we age up in the variety, like you are still in the Miss category in many pageants. And so as you gain into the Ms and into the Misses, and if you are continuing competing at that time, the competition looks different. And so you'll have to step up into those new realms of development and new realms of what you're able to create, So yeah, I think that that's awesome. I want to be able to, we've got about 15 minutes, so I want to see what questions. It looks like Rox has a question for you here. Is it cool if we take some questions, Nicole?
Of course.
Awesome, let's do it. Okay, so Rox is saying, what about when one has not the tools for making the things you want to show? Should one still do it somehow? Okay, so it sounds like what she's saying is like, if you don't have the tools for the things, but you have a vision of what you want to showcase, should you just do it or should you wait until you have those tools?
No, like this whole, like even going back to the story about my coloring book, I was like, I don't know how to publish this thing and make it real. And there was also other factors into that too. I was like, do I really want people to buy it or do I want to give it away? And there's just so many different things that I went through in my brain about this, coloring book. And I also wanted to have it to be able to talk about at my pageant, like, here is something I physically created. This is something that I'm able to give to children whenever I go talk to them at school, or whether I'm having some sort of event going on. This is something that I can give to them. So when I leave, they're still going to have that with them. And it's going to remind them to always think about living a courageous life and always think about choosing courage when they're standing up to bullies or, just different things that they go through in their life. And if I hadn't done that, I would not have a coloring book right now. And even though it wasn't the most perfect thing in the beginning, I really wish that I had one. I'm actually at college right now, so I wish I was at home because I could grab one off the shelf and show you guys what it looks like. I might post that later in the group one day about what that looks like. But I mean, you just have to get it out there because somebody needs it somewhere. And even if it's not perfect or you don't have the tools to make it what it should be, there's always that first iteration that you need to go through. And then once you do get those tools, you'll be able to then perfect it later. And that's kind of how the coloring book that I have now is on Amazon. People from any and everywhere can get it. And it's just such a great process to go through and understand, because even in the first iteration, it's like, okay, I have my coloring book, but maybe there's some drawings in there that I could fix and make better. or, just there's always going to be improvements that you're going to be working on whenever you are creating your legacy project or whatever it is that is for you. So I say go for it, no matter if you have the tools or not. If you really want to do it, you're going to find a way to make it happen.
That is so true. I am reminded of this story in the Bible. And of course, I never know where things are found in the Bible. So maybe Gloria can help us out here. But the story of Moses and the burning bush. So Moses had left and was like in the wilderness for decades. And God finally speaks to him through a burning bush and says to him, you are going to be the person that leads my people out of Egypt. And Moses's reaction if you read it, it's fascinating in the Bible. If you read it through this lens, basically Moses is like, yeah, but God, I couldn't do it because, and he has this list of excuses. And he's like, well, I couldn't do it because I'm not really that good of a speaker. And I couldn't do it because of this. And I can't do it because of this and all this stuff. And I'm not proficient with language. I don't have communication skills. And, and those people don't even like me. And he makes up all these excuses. And in the end, God says, Moses, what do you have? And Moses is like, well, I have this stick, and it's his like walking stick. And I'm envisioning Moses, like he left the city because he killed a man. So he had to leave. So now he's like, wanted. And so he's like living in a wilderness and he's got a stick. And so God is, after he's like, oh, I can't do it because of this, made up all these excuses. And God is finally like, what do you have? Well, I've got a stick. And he's like, throw that stick on the ground. And he's like, okay. He throws it on the ground. It turns into a snake. And he's like, pick it up. And he picks it up and it turns back into his staff. And it's like when we do what we can do with what we have, God will add his supernatural to it. And so we don't need to have that much. We just need to have the things that are given to. When you find the tools, like you said, like you're like, oh, I didn't know. I was doing what I could. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, Alycia has a whole thing about how to write and publish your book. Done. That's the thing I need. Like, what do you have? Oh, well, I have this course. Maybe I can use it with the book that I have and put these two things together. And now we've got something epic. Yeah. So it's like this idea of, but what do you, we all have something. We all have something. And as coaches, Nicole and I know it's our job to help you find that something inside of you. So we're going to be the ones being like, what do you have? Like show me what you do have. And then how can we use that and build it into the thing that God wants it to be, right? That big vision that you can now Nicole's impacting lives. Now it's not just about, I'm going to hand this out to kids in schools. Now you can still hand it, but now people can find it. People can buy this book on Amazon. She can use the proceeds to go back into whatever's the next thing to reach out to more and more people. And so it's I have a lot of women who, when they publish their book, they specifically give 50% of the proceeds, or they give 100% of the something back to their charity of choice. There's a lot that you can do with that, and it's accessible to people. Amazon is available to people all over the world. So it's not limiting yourself just to the schools that you speak at or whatever. So often we think, oh, it's just about our local community. No, if you are thinking about winning at a big level, you got to be thinking about how do you get your message out to even more people. So I appreciate you saying that. And that's a great question, Rox. You let us down a little,
Yes.
a little message there. So thank you. What other questions do you girls have for Nicole? I'm sure that lots of people are curious, maybe if they've seen your Instagram and stuff. I'd like to ask you this question just personally. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I think everybody does it a little bit differently. I'm curious if you have a strategy or a methodology that you use for posting on Instagram. Like, do you say, I'm going to post 3 times a week, or I'm going to always post once a week? Or what's your strategy? Because it's beautiful what you've got. The content you put out is always epic. What's your methodology or strategy that you use to manage your own social media?
Yeah, so I actually have several different little schedulers that I use. One is Later, and there's another one in there that I use. I like to use as many free versions of things that I can and make it work. So like some of them have like a limit of how many you can post a month and like different things like that. But I'd be able to find a couple of schedulers on my phone. I have apps on my phone where I'll do all my editing on my computer and get all of the captions and everything figured out and put that in the program, and then set a time for when I want it to post, and it'll post. So that's even the same thing with your podcast. I set all of mine to be like 3 a.m. EST so that people all around the world, like it's all coming up at a specific time so everyone can have it. And just using those schedulers have been a deal breaker for me because I am way too busy. Even like being able to post those things on time, because my time was like 8 a.m. every Wednesday. That's whenever my podcast would come out or something like that. So I would always have my post early in the morning. So all of my morning people would be able to, when they're scrolling through Instagram as soon as they wake up and they're like, oh, new podcast today. Let me listen to that while I am getting ready in the morning. So always having that ready and available the entire process through has been something that's been so crucial to me, and it just takes the weight off of you. One of the things that I got from Alycia that I absolutely live by now is doing things in batches. So with my podcast, I'll record 10 episodes in a day. Then I'll edit all of those episodes, and then I'll get all those episodes scheduled out. And that's the same thing with the social media. I'll go through and I'll create all the content for those 10 episodes. Then I'll write all the captions for those 10 episodes. And then I will get all of those scheduled out on my Instagram. So they're posting without me having to do it. Because when you're in college or if you're working a full-time job, it is so hard to keep up and remember, oh yeah, I need to post at 8 o'clock this morning. It's just so many things that you have to think about. But whenever you have these scheduling programs, things just happen for you whenever you do all the batches beforehand and have tons of content already ready to go. So that's been my secret to getting things ready and flowing easily.
And of course it would be, again, organization. I got to say your quote again. Organization is what lets you do things quickly and efficiently. And I love that. Yes, I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I do batching. Batching is how everybody does it, right? Like you have to. How could you possibly do this one at a time, right? You got to have a system for something or else it's like never going to happen. We've got two more questions. One I'm going to answer because I know it's not necessarily up for Nicole, but Janae Joe is asking, I'm working on a foundation and a school scholarship. So she's asking, has anyone else done anything in this field? So Janae, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, and Nicole, I don't think I told you about this yet either. Kama, who we all know and love, she is going to be on with us tomorrow. She did that, Janae. So she has a scholarship. She's got a foundation that she built, and she's going to be talking with us tomorrow about how she recently won her pageant. She's Mrs. Washington America. So she's going to be sharing how that evolved and how she was able to use what she learned in the Win a Pageant Academy and leverage that to build the scholarship that she now has. So hopefully that could be something really great too. Cool. Okay, so here is a question from Gloria. This is something that I think is really probably a question that we all have. And it is because what you're describing is like, it feels like the way you're saying it, it feels easy for you. But I know that it's not. I know that you had to run into blocks along the way. Like there had to be things that come up where it didn't work, or the microphone wasn't turned on right, or like you recorded a full episode, and then you realized like the whole thing wasn't recording, or like I'm sure that you had these things and I know that is true because I know that's true of every successful person, that we all have to overcome roadblocks instead of allowing them to get in our way. And even just watching you over the last few weeks as you've been onboarding as a coach, you've been doing all of the things to prepare for this jumpstart, and you're in your master's degree, and you're doing all this life, and you just moved into a new place, and it's not without challenge. What have you done? What's been like the core things that have helped you, that you've put in your life to help you overcome challenges like this?
Yes. So, yes, tons of challenges I have been facing with the podcast, with, posting on social media. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because for the longest time, even before I was a coach with the Win a Pageant Academy, I had always wanted to be a pageant coach. So I was thinking about it. I was like, something I want to do. And I just really, truly believe God puts the things on your heart for a reason. And then he's going to make them happen in the best timing. And I know that through this podcast stuff that I do, through my social media branding and all the 9 yards, everything happens for a reason. There's things that you need to learn. There's things that you need to know prior to moving on to that next step. So just staying grounded in faith and knowing that even if you mess up, even if things go totally wrong, there's a new way that you're going to learn how to do it because you made that mistake. And this is something specifically I can think of whenever I was recording. I had a podcast, like straight just podcast. I have a podcast. I said had. I still have it. But I was just doing podcast only. And then I wanted to transition into YouTube. So I was like, well, how to do that? Because I didn't want to have my audio on one thing and then a video on the other. And I wanted to edit at the same time. And I was just going through this entire process about how the heck do I do this? So in that time, I was like, well, let me just try my iPhone, because I had one of the newest iPhones at the time. It was the iPhone 11 Pro, whatever they call them. And I was recording on that. And for the first, however many episodes, it worked pretty fine. But then I was noticing the quality of my microphone, or not having can't speak today. Having my microphone plugged up, you could tell it was a total difference in between those. And you just have to know, like, these are the things that you're going to learn as you go through. Like, the process is really what you want to go through, because the process is what's going to teach you all these things in the end that's going to create a beautiful product out of it. And the funny story about this is I was recording on my phone. I was doing 10 episodes at a time, and I'd gotten through the first 7, and then I picked up my phone to do something on it. I set it back up, and I was doing the video, and I was recording it. Everything was having a great time. It was all awesome. And then I go to watch it back, and I actually recorded the entire thing in slow-mo. So it was and next time on the literally a slow motion video of my podcast. And I was like, really? Did I really do all of this? But then I was like, okay, well, what do you do now that you've made the mistake? What can I do to fix it? So now I know how to create a slow motion video and turn it into a regular video. So there's just so many things throughout the process that you're going to learn. And there's just so many things that God, even if something superficial as that, God wants you to learn those things, because you can then help other people later, or just make your content even better in the end.
Nicole, that is hilarious. I had no idea that happened to you. I'm over here busting up that's terrible, and brilliant at the same time, because we've been talking this week about how experience is not in the things when they go perfectly right. It's in when things go wrong. And that it doesn't have to go wrong to you in order to learn the thing. It can go wrong to someone else, and then you learn from it, And so it's because you can borrow that experience from somebody else, So that's a perfect example of that crazy thing happening to you. And you're like, what the heck? But you figured it out, And you always do. Yeah, exactly. And I think too, something else that I picked up from you, because I remember that call we got on when you were like, okay, I've got the podcast thing down. I think I'm ready to transition into YouTube. How do we make this smooth? How do we make this happen? It was the microphones, but if I'm recording it like this, then the mic quality isn't safe. And it was all this tech, was getting in the way. And so you were like, what do I do? And I remember that call specifically, and you were resisting you just have to do it, Nicole. You have to just do it. And you were resisting it because we all want things to be beautiful. And especially, there's this, I forget what it's called. There's a term for this, for great creators. When we have a vision for something of excellence, we can see the vision. We see it beautifully. It's like a chef that wants to create the most beautifully, perfectly made scallops, let's say. And scallops aren't easy to make, but they know what it would look like. And so then they try, and it just is a disaster. They're like, oh, I left it on way too long, or this heat was too hot, or the seasoning isn't right. So then they try again, and then they try again. And it would be worse if you did a product that was bad, your very first version, and you were like, look how great this thing is. I never have to develop it. No, you're going to be a little embarrassed of your first version, because it's not the vision that you have. It's not the big, where am I going with this? You see what's coming way down the road. That's the vision God's given you, but you still got to start over here in order to get there. He's not going to just supernaturally skip up all these steps of the stuff you have to learn. There are ways to shortcut how you get there, and ways to still learn in a quick and efficient way, but it's not that you're going to skip those steps. So I love what you said. It's you just do it. You just get over yourself, and you just do it, and you just keep going, and you just keep learning. Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. So we are at the top of our time here. So we are going to wrap up and say goodbye. Ladies, if you have not yet followed Nicole, go do it now. I'm going to put it again in the comments here so you can follow her. the reason I really want you following her is because you will start to see how she does things, how she interacts with her audience from this brand of being courageous. She does it so brilliantly. Actually, all of our coaching staff does this really, really excellently. And Nicole does it. I love just how you use all these tools. Like, you're like, oh, there's probably a tool for that. Like, you're of this generation. Those of us who are older than 30, we don't think always, there's got to be an app for that. And you just think, there's probably a service out here that already does this. And you find it. And I just love that about you. Like, you're going to just help all of the rest of us just level up significantly, because you're going to be like, oh, yes, there's an app for that. I'm sure there's a resource for this. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. So thanks, Nicole, for being here. I just want to honor you for all of the work that you've put in, and to truly be a role model for all of us that are wanting to see ourselves in that place that you are already landed in a successful podcast, in a beautiful brand, well-branded, that still looks like you. It's not like a fake curated image. It's truly you, and to show up and share this deep heart story that you have to have built what you are able to have built now to just change lives is so beautiful. So thank you again for being on the show today. I so appreciate you joining in the Jumpstart, and I can't wait to see how you radically change people's lives inside of the Academy. It's going to be epic in there. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. This is a dream come true. I never would have believed in a million years, from the very first Jumpstart back in January or March or something of last year, I would be a presenter. I would be a coach working alongside one of my favorite mentors in the entire world. I mean, this is just incredible. And I cannot wait for all you guys watching, be able to pour into you. I hope you guys join the Academy, because it's going to be incredible. The things that you see that all these coaches have created is because of the Win a Pageant Academy. All the things that we've been able to do has been through that program, and the just amazing things that I've been able to achieve through them has just been a highlight in my life. And I'm just so blessed to be able to have this opportunity. And just thank you so much, Alycia. I'm so excited for what's to come.
Yes. Thanks, Nicole. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you again soon, hon. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Isn't she incredible? I absolutely love this woman. Like, everything that she has designed, everything that she has created, like, she's not afraid of the work, because it takes work, obviously, but she's not afraid of it. She's like, let's figure it out. Let's get creative. Let me get to the finish line. What are the things I can do? I want to just reiterate what she said. When you are organized, you can do things so much more quickly and efficiently. And I think that is like, that's what I see in Nicole, is that she's always looking for, okay, how do I know what I need to do. How can I do it in a way that's quick and that's efficient? And I just absolutely love that about her. She's such a gem. You girls are lucky to be working with her inside of the Academy. She's learned a little bit from me, but the things that she has gone above and beyond of what she's going to be able to deliver now in the Academy, I am super pumped about. And that is why I'm glad that she is a coach, because she's able to bring so many things that I just don't know about. So she brings the youth. I love how she was like, I started pageants late in life, 18 years old. Some of you have started pageants late in life, 40 years old, right? So it's awesome that we get to learn now from Nicole, because she's in it, she's doing it, and she's not afraid of it. So I'm so pumped that she was able to join us.